Hello, everybody. This is our very first attempt at doing a video. Yes, my crew member over on the other side has already figured out that I'm winging this completely. So, and we will be winging this a lot, but this is the fun part. My name's Wayne. I'm the captain of Starfleet, the USS Southern Cross. We are a chapter of Starfleet, the Star Trek International Fan Club, Fan Association. I'll get the name correct, and I'd probably muck the name up anyway, which I do quite often. But it's captain's prerogative who's allowed to make a mess. We want to have a bit of fun and show you what we do. So what the general idea is here is that we're going to basically talk about Star Trek, and we're going to pick one of the series. We're going to do a couple of these episodes. Hopefully by the end of them, we'll actually look a lot more professional, or I will. That can only be hopeful. So basically what we're going to do is, I think we're going to pick, I'm going to pick Voyager. I've just thrown him completely into the deep end, because we're only talking about it a few minutes. So which one are we going to pick? And we didn't say it, and I've just thrown him into the deep end. I've just thrown him into the abyss of a temporal anomaly. And let's see how many Star Trek quotes we can come up with in this, whatever this is. So I will now hand over to the gracious crew member and let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Sean O'Keefe. Yes, part of the Southern Cross group. I'm also the webmaster, creator, and author as well of Trekkie Fan Fiction. Yeah, and chief editor as well. So yes, hello, and thanks for joining us.
I should have let him do the intro more than me. I think he's got a better go. Look, straight up front, I'll put all the links in below for this, for the Trekkie Fan Fiction, for Starfleet, for Southern Cross, the whole bit. So don't get all hyper. And we are hoping that at least 2 people watch this video. I'm planning, I've only worked on 1, but if we get 2, I'll be really happy. Okay, so first and foremost, we love Star Trek, or we wouldn't be part of a Star Trek fan club. That's a bit sort of silly. But I kind of love, I kind of love the fact of Voyager. It was a different series. I know a few people have bashed it over the years. I know a few people have said
TNB light, yes.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people said it, especially the Harry Kim situation, but we might get into the
Harry Kim, who never got promoted. No, we won't mention that at all.
Everybody else got promoted. Even Neelix got promoted around him. But we might get time to go into the Harry Kim situation, but I know that's going to cause a lot of trouble. But look, I'm hoping everybody understands the premise of Voyager. It was a starship basically caught in the Badlands, sent across to the Delta Quadrant, and then tried to figure out how to get home. Now, I kind of like that premise to begin with. It was, I don't think anything had ever been said like that before in a series. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I'm willing to be completely bashed onto the head and whatever, but go right ahead.
Oh, it's not as if it was totally unheard of. The idea of a spaceship being sucked off and being left in the middle of nowhere had never been done before. Like, it never been done in like Farscape or Andromeda or anything like that. Yeah, it's totally unheard of. No, it's never been totally unheard of. But the idea of being in Star Trek, of being taken to the other side of the galaxy and having to fend for yourself, I thought it had great promise to begin with. And yeah, I thought it had great promise. And as well, the idea of putting the 2 crews together as well. to create a source of conflict was, I thought it had great promise. Unfortunately, it was an idea that was thoroughly squandered very quickly. The only thing that came out of it really, aside from, was basically Siska. And she was such a great character. She was such a great character. It's pity they killed her off so quickly. And what was the name of the, good grief, Brad Dourif played him. Do you remember him? Was he, I'm assuming actually he was one of the Marquis.
Sean. Sean.
Yes, Ma. Grazie, Ma. Thank you. You can always guarantee that your mother-in-law will interrupt. But yeah, Brad Dourif played, he was the Beta Z bloke who helped recover Voyager in Basics Part 1 and 2. He was also a serial killer who...
yes. Yeah. Now I get it.
Part of the Marquis?
Yeah, he was part of the Marquis.
Yes, he was part of the Marquis. So,
he was part of the Marquis.
But yes, so he was a great character who just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, but saved the day in the end. But yeah, the idea of having these two crews somehow trying to mesh was a great idea, but I thought was largely squandered in the end.
Why do you think though? Why do you think it was squandered? I got to admit, I would have liked to have. I think personally, they gelled a little bit too quickly.
Yes,
I would have liked to have seen it go out for at least 3/4 of the first season. I think 1 minute they're complete enemies, and look, I get it. The enemy of mine is my friend. I get that kind of concept, and I know I said that wrong, so don't attack me on that. I'm going to get a lot of things wrong. I get the factor that they needed to work together. I completely understand that, but
yes,
I think they all gelled a little bit too quickly.
Yes.
From basically not being, I wouldn't go as far as saying mortal enemies, because the Marquis didn't go out of their way to deliberately fight Starfleet. I think Starfleet went out of their way a little bit too much to fight the Marquis, which that's a whole nother story, which we can tackle one other day. But there was animosity between them. There was two different agendas. And I think to find out that they got the two agendas going so quickly together, yeah, I don't think, how many, I think what, there was three or four episodes, 4 episodes, and they were all best buddies again or something. I think
that's one of the gripes that I had with Voyager in particular, in that it suffered from a whole lot of amnesia. It really did. For instance, Voyager brought characters on board that it very quickly forgot. The crew of the Equinox was absorbed into Voyager and never seen again.
Yep.
Wilkara. I'm actually writing in the process of writing a story, but her name was Wilkara. I hate when I forget their names. Anyhow, the point being, you'll recall the story where 7 of 9 encountered the 3 people that she created a mini link with. And one of them was a Bajoran engineer recovered from the USS Excalibur. And anyhow, she had a month left to live, but she was absorbed into Voyager's crew and never seen again.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I would have loved to have seen some resolution to her story. As I said, if there's one thing Voyager is notorious for, is amnesia. Things happen in a story, previous story, and the next story, totally forgotten.
Yeah, look, I would have to agree with you on that. And look, Star Trek is renowned for doing that, especially with episodes and bringing in characters and aliens. You see them in one episode and then you never see their resolution ever again. You never see what happened to them. And Star Trek was always renowned for doing that.
Well, at least with Picard, you got to see the progression in his character. You know, absorbed by the Borg, the very next story, he goes home and he and his brother get into a fist fight and he breaks down with probably the one bloke he would actually break down with, which was his brother.
Which I think was one of the great episodes of Next Gen.
It was a great story. It was an absolutely brilliant story, and you know, Picard never quite got over it. You know, you could still see that. So you know, that was a great character development that came out of it, and you know, that still haunted him and never quite went away. But there were other things. I mean, the things that happened to some of the characters, and it's like that. But the very next episode that came around,
yeah, everybody was. It was almost like they were resetting the episode every time.
Yeah, it's like hit the reset button, and they've totally forgotten about it. It's like,
or Q was in
I've been in rehab for a month.
I think that is one of the problems of Voyager. I think they tried to kind of come to terms with it towards the end of it. I mean, when you had Egypt and the other kids, you saw their story as it went out. You saw Egypt's story. I think they realized that they'd done it a few times too many and they needed to flesh out their stories a little bit. But it would have been nice to have fleshed out some of the other stories, especially the Marquee. I would have loved to have known how the Marquee people got to where they were. We never really found out about that in the stories, which I feel there was a few, at least, episodes. They didn't have to do them concurrently. They could have done them here, there, and everywhere, where they could have got the Marquee story into it. They had the opportunity, but I think they let that story arc down a little bit, to be honest. But that's me. I mean, and I know a lot of people are going to have different opinions about this, and that's fine. I mean, this is what the great thing about Star Trek is. Everybody can have multiple opinions about the same particular episode.
Well, and there are major plot holes as well. I mean, take, for instance, the quantum slipstream drive. They realized very quickly that they could use it, but it wouldn't take too long before the slipstream drive became unstable and they would fall out of it. And to me, that seems obvious. Use it in very short bursts.
Yeah.
And
that kind of crossed my mind when I watched that episode too. I'm thinking but they were trying to make it home in one hit, which
is stupid.
Yes, I kind of agree with that.
Multiple short bursts, you'll still get there.
I know. I think what they realized is they wrote themselves into a corner with that because they created a slipstream that could get them home. Then they realized, well, hang on, if we get them home and we don't have another story, so we're going to have to kind of throw a spanner.
Unstable.
We're going to have to throw a spanner into the slipstream. I think they came up with the idea and then realized, whoops, hang on, we came up with that a little bit too early, but they'd already kind of gone into it. So
I know it was still a great story.
I think it was a great story.
It was one of the best stories.
It was an absolute ripper of a story, and it had a lot of meat and a lot of body. And I think, in all honesty, that story, they could have gone back to a few times and played around with it in different formats.
And having Geordie LaForge showing up to dissuade Chakotay and Harry Kim from trying to change history. Now, that was a really
I know. That was a nice one. And I think this is something that everybody likes about Star Trek is when they do a crossover. I think that it's a nostalgic point of view and it makes everybody realize, yes, this is Star Trek when you see somebody familiar. And I like those episodes, you know.
There's like unification. I mean, that was just gorgeous when Spock.
I love it. I mean, Relics, I love that one because I love James Doohan. I love him.
It's green.
Yes. I love him. I mean, we can do an episode if these ever take off, which I'd be very surprised if these take off. We could do an episode on that. What do you think about, now I'm not looking to create controversy here. This is not what it's, but I like the factor that they put Janeway in command of a ship, because you'd never actually seen, you'd heard about women females being in charge. You saw a female in charge in Voyage Home, but it was like and I've got my opinions on that particular
the USS Harris. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've got my opinions on that one. And again, if we get off the ground, we can do something about that one. But I liked Kate Mulgrew in as Janeway. I liked her.
Kate Mulgrew was awesome.
Yeah,
she was awesome. Yeah, mind you, she wasn't the first woman.
No, but I don't think the first one would have worked. I personally don't think she would have worked.
Oh no, Genevieve Bujold.
Yeah, brilliant actress.
She would have been as much fun as watching the grass grow.
Brilliant actress. I've seen some of her other movies. She's a brilliant actor, but I don't think she fitted with this.
No, she's not inspiring, and she wouldn't have been great for episodic TV.
No.
You wanted somebody larger than life, and Genevieve is great for cinema, I think, for your poignant acting. But this is Star Trek, and for episodic, you need somebody who is larger than life, and that wasn't Genevieve.
I'm glad they got rid of Janeway's hairstyle from the first season. That was just that was diabolical. I know. Look, I can't say about hairstyles because I don't have much hair to style, but I just would have thought that style.
An hour at the hairdresser this afternoon too.
Well, both of us seem to not have. We don't seem to have a lot of standing in hairstyle. So we're probably
follicularly challenged. Yes,
we're probably stepping into a very dangerous topic here. But I think the hairstyle for the 24th century was I don't think you would have had a hairstyle. It made her look like a school teacher.
Well, maybe that was the idea.
Maybe
and give her a bit more authority. Yes, boys and girls, we're coming together now, and we're going to take this starship to the other side of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Don't anybody tell me otherwise.
And if anyone does anything wrong, you're all in detention. Well, they were in the longest detention I think anyone's ever been in.
70-year detention.
Yes. I think Janeway's character evolved greatly over the series.
Oh yeah, she did. Absolutely.
I personally think she became one of the most popular captains of Star Trek, personally. And at this point, everybody who maybe or maybe not listening, we'd love to hear your comments, because I personally think that Janeway is was one of the greatest captains of Starfleet, and I just think she was given a position and then thrown into circumstances that no captain was ever. You couldn't go to. I don't think they ever trained you to go onto the other side of the galaxy and figure out how to get your ship back in a lifetime. I mean, I think I liked Voyager for one specific reason. This was where it comes down to us. If we're following laws in reality, and this is where we make the decision, do we follow the law or not? Here in Starfleet and in Voyager, they're on the other side of the galaxy. Starfleet and the Federation are nowhere to be seen. Would anyone have worried that if they'd thrown a few of the rules and laws out the window? Probably not, because who was ever going to know? But Janeway had such a presence, as you said, and as you continuously say, that the crew followed her ideals, that we were Starfleet.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah.
We portray Starfleet and the Federation.
That's right. We are Starfleet, and we're going to set an example here.
Yeah. So I think
the way that they were ambassadors.
Yes, and I think this was probably, and I don't think they could have done a lot better writing for a lot of the episodes where they clashed with those policies.
Yeah.
Do we do this or do we not do this? I mean, I think the way they wrote this factor were where the Federation we don't do that, I think was written actually very well, considering they could have easily taken the easy road out of that and said, nah, we're not in the Alpha Quadrant anymore. Let's just torpedo, photon torpedo that planet. No one's going to know about it.
Exactly. Yeah, they never lost sight of their ideals. That's where I think the Equinox dropped the ball. Well, admittedly, they bumped into the wrong people and lost half their crew fairly quickly. But yeah, they lost sight of their ideals. It simply became, to them, nothing more than a race to get home.
Yeah.
It was just about survival. It was no longer about we represent Starfleet, we're going to represent the Federation here. No, it's just we want to survive. And that nothing else mattered anymore. And
see, I think personally the Equinox double episode was actually a really good one, because here you've got two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
You've got Janeway and the Voyager basically following Federation ideals and basically shining above Federation ideals, I believe. I think they went above what the Federation stood for. And then we got the Equinox, basically, well, let's shove all the rules into the airlock and then just let them out. And I think the way the two ships interacted, the two crews interacted, and then right at the end, where the captain of the Equinox finally found his true center.
Yeah, he finally woke up.
I think was actually a very good, how very close the Voyager could have become the Equinox, or how the Equinox could have become Voyager. It would have been, I mean, the episode was, I think, trying to show that it wasn't this gaping situation. It was a very, like a piece of string worth of tipping balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was done very well, in honesty. I think Voyager allowed the storytellers to show new stories from a lot of different perspectives, and especially have the undertone of what it was to be Starfleet and a Federation citizen.
And you consider the Voyager came back for some very tough places. You consider the Hirogen at one point turned Voyager into a flying holodeck.
Yeah.
And they still came back from that and continued on with their ideals. I can't imagine. They must have lost some crew members through that. Janeway came darn close to dying herself at least once or twice in that article. Mind you, on your point that Janeway was a great captain, she was a great captain in many respects, but I did read one thing that gave me pause recently. And if there was one thing that she wasn't quite as good at when it came into comparing with Picard, and that was one bloke noted, he said that Picard knew where he was no matter where he stood in the Enterprise. He could be standing in a Jefferies tube, look around and know exactly where he was. You note that one episode in Voyager where she went down to the lower decks and looked about her and she didn't know where she was. It's like, I don't think I've ever been down here before. And then she was talking to the lower decks crew members. She didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's like there were the crew members that she hadn't really taken the time to get to know at all. And it was a section of the ship she hadn't bothered to take the time to get to know. And in that regard, she was unlike Picard. She hadn't taken the time to truly get to know her ship as well as Picard. And when you consider that Voyager is dwarfed by the Galaxy class Enterprise, that's a big difference.
Yeah, 1,500 compared to, I think, 170 or 180 crew. So it is massively. I
wouldn't be surprised if Voyager could fit into the Enterprise's shuttle bay.
Yeah. I do remember that episode, and I do agree with your observation. I think, I feel that they were.
Nobody's perfect, I'll admit.
No. But I think in that position, I think the writers took an easy way out.
True.
they wanted to create an episode where there was misfits. Now, where to do that, there was no one else who could become like the mother hen figure than Janeway. It wasn't going to work. So in that instance, I think the writers took an easy way out, and Janeway, as this very powerful, very empathetic captain, had to take a hit. And I'm not certain it was justified. Personally, I think it was just it was a badly written scene, that one. But that's me.
Yeah.
I think they could have done it. They could have done exactly the same scene differently, but they wanted to emphasize that these three had fallen through the cracks completely.
Yeah.
And even the captain didn't know about them. And I think that was a badly written scene. They could have done it a lot better.
Yes. Yeah,
But
I agree. It had definitely had its shortcomings, and it did not paint Janeway in a very very nice light at all.
No, and again, as you said, the next episode, the button was reset and everybody was happy and with that. And I think that was a bad situation, because you saw Seven, you saw Kez, you saw Neelix, you saw the Doctor, and I love the Doctor in Voyager. I love the Doctor. I think he was my favorite character. But you saw them all evolve and grow and multiply. But these three, you never saw them again. So you don't know what happened after Janeway took them under her wing and started to get them out of their little holes down in the lower decks.
I still have hope that, speaking of the Doctor, I still have hope that the Doctor will show up in Star Trek Discovery. Mind you, not the Prime Doctor, but the one that showed up. You remember that episode of the Doctor that was actually a copy, a duplicate, that was blasted free of the Voyager and wound up on a planet 400 years in the future.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
It was living, I think the episode was Living Witness.
Yes,
And,
I love that. I love that
exactly.
episode.
And he stayed with them for several hundred years before taking a shuttlecraft and heading back to the Federation.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that overall that timeline might match up with Discovery's 32nd century timeline.
Well, it's probably the closest possibility that you're going to get to it.
Well, on my website, I've got a story up about that. So I've posited the idea. I hope that Discovery will pick up on it, but who knows? Robert Picardo might make an appearance.
Well,
there's no reason why that Doctor couldn't appear.
There is a very close like a very close concept. I don't know how true it is. I mean, like everybody in Star Trek, there's so many ideas thrown around of potential plots that he may in some format appear in Prodigy. Now, I don't know how they would do that, but I've heard that he may turn up in Prodigy. I'm skeptical of that, to be truthfully honest.
You're not aware of my theory about the timeline for Prodigy, are you?
No, in fact, don't tell me your theory, because I haven't seen Prodigy, and this is one of the only Star Treks I want to see where no one tells me anything about it.
Okay.
I don't know why. I have no idea. Maybe because of the real nifty designs in it and everything, and
it's fun.
Look, it's. I think I've seen the very first episode, and I got to admit, I would have to say Prodigy is probably closer to canon concepts of Star Trek than any other on the market at the moment. But that's me. But we're digressing.
Yeah, we are digressing.
And I like to use big words when I can actually get them to come out of my mouth. What do you think of Chakotay as a character and as an
underutilized?
Sorry?
Totally underutilized. I absolutely had to agree with poor Robert Beltran. He was absolutely underutilized. I love the fact that he had a spirituality about him in the early days. that was sadly largely ignored in a short period of time. But aside from basically getting in Janeway's face occasionally, he became window dressing after a short period of time. Largely, totally underutilized.
I think a lot of people, I remember reading towards the end of Voyager series, a lot of people believe that Chakotay could have been the next Riker, where he could have blossomed and bloomed into something grand. But basically, as soon as 7 and 9 came on, that was the end of that was the end of Chakotay.
Yeah,
that was the end of his storyline, kind of thing. He did appear, but it seemed to be constantly butting heads with everybody after that. It was, I think I liked the character of Chakotay. He was an individual. He was an unusual character, and I think they had a potential because he was marquee and everything. I think they had a very good potential to make some good stories, which they never went back on his stories a lot, and I think they missed a lot.
They never even gave him a promotion either.
No,
you know, he was always a lieutenant commander.
I think in that situation, realistically, where else was he going to go? I mean,
you could make him at least a full commander.
Yeah, I think they missed. It was odd who Janeway was promoting and who Jane. I mean, Paris got promoted twice, so I mean, let's get real.
Yeah.
I mean, if he can get promoted twice, I think, yes, I'm going there. Harry could have got promoted once.
Absolutely, the least he could have been was Lieutenant JG. I mean, seriously.
Okay, we've got there. Let's go.
What Tilly can become Ensign Tilly and can become sodding Lieutenant Tilly, then Harry Kim can get out of Ensign hell.
Okay, we've gone there. I was trying to avoid it, but I said this there. What do you think of the character of Ensign Kim?
Harry Kim.
Harry Kim. Sorry, I've even tried to promote him. Of Harry Kim.
Harry Kim. I thought he was great. I thought he was once again underutilized, but yeah, he was fun. I love the fact that he had such a great friendship with Tom Paris, and their episodes as in Captain Proton. Always hysterical.
I got to admit,
and Captain Janeway.
I'm seriously thinking of I'm doing a cosplay, and I'm going to. So keep an eye out. It might be a couple of years. I'm going to build Satan's robot. I really want to build.
Yes. We are Borg.
It's literally, I'm going down to the local dump and I'm going to get all the bits and pieces from the local building site. But I want to build Satan's robot.
That was hysterical. But yeah, so his friendship with Tom was great, and he was. But I felt so sorry for Harry because he didn't get, shall we say, he didn't get a lot of action. Get a lot of action. He fell in love.
Yeah, the generational ship. Yes,
exactly. And they formed a love that, well, their bond was something serious. But mind you, I mean, it was a serious story because, for one, the captain was getting in his face and saying, you shouldn't be creating a relationship with this woman, and he's basically getting in her face, which I gave him credit for because he's saying to her, "Who the hell are you to tell me who I can fall in love with?"
I know.
And I gave him credit for that.
And you never saw that kind of attitude from him again. That was
seriously, Harry, where did you grew a pair and then they shriveled up?
Yeah, I don't know where they were going. The funny thing with Harry Kim, the character, I can't remember his name now. It's gone.
Garrett Wang.
Thank you. I literally went blank then. He was actually out of nearly all of the crew there, out of all the characters, he was actually a very renowned actor at the time, and he was given the most
banal existence.
Yeah, I like that word. That's my word of the day, I think. He was given a pretty bad character. I mean,
Hail improvement open, Captain. Yeah, there's.
I think what they realized that they hadn't given him something, so they started giving him the Night Watch captain.
Yes.
As a kind of a payoff for, look, you're not getting promoted.
Yeah.
But we'll give you the captain's seat and you can make decisions to blow the ship up or whatever. I don't know where. I've read a lot of stuff about Harry Kim and read a lot of what producers and writers were going to do and what they didn't do. And there's so much conflicting information about his character and his character development that, in all honesty, I don't know what's true and what's not true about him anymore.
No. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Aside from the fact that he died and didn't,
I like that one. I always loved Star Trek. That they, it's like a daytime soap opera. You can kill somebody, but you can bring them back very quickly.
I know. I love them doing that in Lower Decks. He just the Bajoran security guard just came back and it's like, how did that happen? We don't talk about it.
Oh.
And you can't talk to him about it either. And
and
the giant koala, and it's like, what?
I kind of.
But I diverge.
Oh, we're going to do that a lot, I think, unfortunately.
Yes, but so poor Harry. Now, I think they just didn't give him enough backstory. I mean, that's one thing I think is very important as a writer as well. It's too easy to create a cardboard cutout character, plonk them in a story and try and have them do something. You've got to create a real person. You've got to give them some backstory. In this case, Harry was too much cardboard cutout. We saw his first interaction on DS9 as your green ensign who faces off with Quark, and Quark tries to rip him off, and he's obviously so green out of Starfleet Academy that he almost gets ripped off by Quark with a bunch of worthless gems, and of course Tom Paris rescues him out of this situation, and that's it. It's like, okay, I mean, that's the backstory. All we know is he plays the clarinet. Aside from that, nah.
I think with
they didn't flesh him out enough.
No, I think with most other TV shows, you can get away with a flatter character, right? But with Star Trek, because it's been going on for so long and because it is a genre by itself, all right? It's an entity by itself. The fans expect a degree of backstory. We kind of demand it now. And for a writer to go in and not give, even if it's only a paragraph of a backstory, a quick overview or bits and pieces, I don't think it is, the fans don't like that. Look at how many books alone on the Jeffries tubes alone there are. There's like 3 or 4 books and websites and God knows what else. Whole forums on the Jeffries tubes, just on the Jeffries tube. So we like the backstory and the interwoven. Harry, we didn't get it.
No.
We got it with everybody else, but we didn't. We haven't got it with we got it with Neelix. We haven't got it with the Doctor.
Neelix had a brilliant backstory.
Oh, yeah.
And the Doctor even had some backstory.
I know.
Even a hologram had more backstory than Harry.
I know. That's saying something when you're actually going to say a hologram who doesn't exist and you actually see where he was born,
We see some of his copies.
I know. I don't know. This is where I go back to all the stuff I did read about Harry Kim. A lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Nah.
It doesn't physically.
Compare him with.
Hang on.
With,
I'll just agree with whatever you want. That's fine.
Yeah. Now compare him with probably we would up until that point, probably one of the most banal characters in Deep Space Nine was Dr. Bashir.
Yes.
He was a cardboard character doctor until it came out, oh, he's an augment. He's been genetically modified.
Yeah, but his
Shocking
story arc
backstory.
went like that.
Yeah. And suddenly he's interesting. He's got this fascinating backstory. He's actually a heck of a lot smarter than what he's been playing to be. And suddenly he's interesting. Harry never got that.
But did you notice in that episode that they really didn't go into a lot of in-depth backstory? They just said, oh, by the way, he's this. Now, that one sentence or couple of sentences, I'll
Well,
stand corrected.
apparently he was, practically, really born mentally stunted.
Yeah, but there was a couple of sentences where they said, oh, he was augmented because of this. All of a sudden, the fans have given, oh, well, we've got all this going. Even if they'd given a small, where he grew up, if he had any troubles growing up, all of a sudden, the fans could have then created their own backstory. But we weren't given anything to work with.
No.
And that was I think, the problem.
Yeah.
If we had been given something with Kim to work with, well, it would have been, I think we could have accepted it. I think we've done Kim, I think we've bashed Kim into the airlock.
No, he's already gone out through that hole in the side of the ship.
Yeah, and come back. A couple of times, I think. So I like B'Elanna Torres. I liked her character.
When she was breaking people's noses, or when she was breaking people's noses?
A bit of both, I think. She's very good at breaking people's noses and getting on the wrong side of everybody. But I think it was an interesting. I know why they had to do it, but I think it was a bit out towards left field why they made somebody who hadn't really gone through Starfleet chief engineer over somebody who had already done all the years of assistant chief and all of that. I think that was a bit, I know why they had to do it, because B'Elanna was going to be one of the main characters and they needed her in a main character's role. I get that, but...
Well, she'd had the hands-on experience on board the Marquis ship as well, though.
Yeah, I think because they killed the guy anyway who...
Yeah, they killed him in season 7, Paul.
Yeah. Now, I think what they could have done...
a message to your captain. What's that?
Yeah. I think what they could have done is made her assistant chief engineer and then killed him earlier. That would have been a more sensible situation. Because I think they would already made the decision that he was not going to get a lot of roles. Realistically, we didn't see him after those first few episodes. So I think they could have done him as chief, her as assistant chief, and then by the end of the first season, he gets killed and she becomes... That would have made more of a sense, more of a logical conclusion than going over somebody who's got the experience, the knowledge, the know-how, and he knows Voyager's back to front. And I think in that episode where they decide to give her the chief engineer and they're in the briefing room and he comes up, he's made to look very silly in that episode. Sure. And I think that was a bad... I get what they were trying to do and I get why they did it, but I don't think they did it the right way, personally.
Sure. In the end, she chose talent over, I don't know. I know, admittedly, B'Elanna is a very talented, intelligent person, but
but did
exactly Starfleet. And
did she take talent?
There's got to be a lot more to just being talent and creative. You've got to be a good leader as well.
Did she take talent, or did she take the situation to create cohesion and ease in two crews? See, that's how I
here in the engineering space too.
Yeah, see, that's how I took it. I took it that she didn't really take B'Elanna's talent at the time. She took her because she wanted to show that Marquis could be considered to be part of the fleet.
Yeah. So by promoting a Marquis to chief engineer, that's a fairly good point. I think they took on about 30 Marquis.
You don't ever actually really see. I mean, it took me I've never known exactly how many crew were on board the Marquis Raider and how many crew came across.
Yeah, I think it was about 30.
I've never been able to find an exact number.
Yeah, neither have I. Neither have I. It's that lovely grey area that we can.
Yeah,
Nice and vague.
Voyager did stay in that grey area a lot more than the other series. I have to admit that they tended to like when they got cornered into a plot problem. They went into the grey area a lot.
Well, actually, that begs one other question. Why is it in 7 years for Voyager traveling back? Why is it they only have one baby born on the ship?
Yeah, I find that almost. No, they had two. They had Naomi Wildman, so technically they had two babies.
Oh, Tom Paris's baby born when they get back to Earth.
Yeah, but it's born on the ship.
Counts.
I'm doing that again. I don't know why. Their baby was born on the ship. So technically, I'm using the word technically here.
Yeah,
it was two.
Yeah, all right. All right. I'll give you that one.
But let's go to let's go.
There's 40 people on that ship. There's got to be more than one couple.
I know it's in 10 years or 7 years. Sorry, in 7 years, living so close to one another.
Seriously, if you've got a ship that is going to really possibly be a generational ship, one of the first things you need to set up is the next generation.
Yeah.
And that's something that personally, as a writer, they should have been thinking about.
I know. They were losing
mind you, they didn't think about it because they always planned on getting Voyager home in 7 years.
Well, yeah, all right, but the storyline didn't actually. Well, look, the storyline we were getting, you didn't know that because we didn't know how long it was going to go for. It could have gone for another 3 years. It could have gone for only 5 years. So, but the problem was, they were losing crew members. Now, logically, you need to replenish your crew.
Yeah, and you can't keep doing that just by picking up random Borg.
or Talaxians or things like that.
Icheb and Seven of Nine. Don't get me started on what they did to Icheb and Picard.
Oh, we're staying away from Picard for the moment.
Yeah,
we're not going anywhere near that.
They were losing. Yeah, they were losing crew faster than they were replacing them.
Yes, they were, and I just don't understand how a ship like that, who has got a percentage of females and a percentage of males, or percentage of crew. And you're not, there's no relationships building up.
They should have been making more babies.
Well, you would have expected at least one or two within the 7 years, 1 or 2 or 3, and I'm not including Tom and B'Elanna here, but 1 to 3 more couples getting married. But they didn't.
I think I've been inspired by that picture on the wall behind you, actually.
Why? What have you done?
Generation ship. I didn't realize what it is I'm looking at.
This is the background in from Lower Deck.
Okay, I wasn't sure what I was looking at for a second.
Well, for some reason, my camera likes animated backgrounds when I'm using the background. I'm not technically wise by that, but it likes animated backgrounds better.
Yeah, come to think of it, now I recognize it. Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea. I can put one of your background, and my camera doesn't like it.
Okay.
I literally disappeared.
Okay.
I don't get it. There's, for anyone who does watch it, is a technical term of I'm confused with technology and I just go with whatever works.
Okay. I've actually got a green screen behind me, so
yeah, I've got to get my green screen. I've got the green screen, but I can't figure out how to put it back together yet.
Okay. Well, mine's made out of a projector screen and a green sheet.
Oh, that's fine. That works perfectly.
It works brilliantly, mate.
Where are we going next? Oh, let's go with the Doc. We got the Doc and Neelix and Tuvok. So I want to get on to Tuvok.
Oh yeah, Tuvok. I really felt for him actually, and he had some great character development.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with Tuvok. To be honest, I think Tuvok was one of the main characters that they got right out of the whole lot. To be honest,
absolutely. He, how is it I've gone blank on his name?
Tim Russ.
Tim Russ, thank you. Tim Russ is such a great actor. Such a great actor. He does deadpan so well. And yet in the bloopers that you see, he can instantly break character and make you crack up something fierce. Do you remember that the episode where he's leading the children towards the cave entrance? And he's walking towards it, and then he just breaks character and runs away and says, "I ain't going in there."
I like watching Star Trek bloopers because you see the character constantly on the television, then you see them in the middle of a bloop and you think, hang on, that's not the character, that's not the person I know. I mean,
absolutely. But yeah, you're right. Tuvok, they did some great things with him. His efforts to try to help Kess to control her abilities and the hell he went through when she was losing control too. And as well, you could see his, even as a Vulcan, you could see his pain at times, realizing that he was so far away from his wife and children. And I loved the character, that episode as well, when in his memories we were taken back to the Excelsior.
Oh yeah, that one's a great episode. That one's a great one.
Brilliant, brilliant. And of course, we had such a cry after that one. Give us a Captain Sulu series. Give us a Captain Sulu series.
Yeah, I was always depressed with that they didn't do a Captain. I mean, they did a couple of books of Captain Sulu, but that's as close as he got to anything like that. And I just feel, again, that goes back to the times when the series was being done and what people's perceptions of, acceptability. We still have that today. We say we don't, but we do.
I've been editing a book with Captain Sulu in it recently. It's a very good one. I can't wait until we're done and put it up on the website. You'll love reading it. I'll let you know when it's up.
Well, yeah, let us know, and because I like reading Captain Sulu stuff. I think Tuvok got a good writing team. Whoever was writing for him,
yes,
they got in tune with his character and his personality very quickly.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
He was a great sounding board for Janeway as well, because it's a long relationship. Mind you, they never went back to the source of that relationship. I would have loved to have known where it began.
Yeah, they constantly, Star Trek does have this one problem where you see these great relationships, but they never actually tell you where they start. It's something that you would like to find. I mean,
we know when when Guinan met Picard, but we don't know when Picard met Guinan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, did she deliberately seek him out, and when? And
you don't also know what that huge that bond that they had. You don't know why that bond is there.
Yes.
And it's something that I always really wanted to know, where that bond and what that bond was. And I think they could have said something about it.
Exactly. So where did it begin with Tuvok and Janeway? We don't. Yeah. So it was another one of those question mark.
I know they served on the Billings, but I don't think Tuvok was on the Billings. I think he heard about the Billings later.
Yes.
So we know roughly that he knows Janeway's past, but that's as far as it goes.
I wouldn't put it past him being a teacher at the academy when she was there, and he's old.
Well, we do find a little bit when that episode, when we go back, flashbacks into his memory, we do find a little bit of what Tuvok did in his earlier years. So, but we still can't join the two of them together. Look, if anybody does watch this silly and insane episode of whatever we're doing, I don't know, and knows the reason and knows a bit more history about Tuvok and Janeway, by all means, put it in the comments, because
I would love to hear it myself.
it's going to bug me now. It is literally going to bug me until I find out truth about it. Okay, who's next? Let's go with the Doc, because I think for me the Doc was one of the most favourite characters.
Oh, you mean Joe?
The
ultimate timeline from Endgame.
What was
years coming up with Joe?
What was the Vidian's name that she gave him? Schwartz.
Schmalz.
Schmalz, that's it.
Schmalz or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that name. I love that name.
Yeah, it's like the father's name or something, wasn't it? But yeah, Schmalz. But yeah, he should have stuck with it.
I think out of all the characters, the Doctor's is the one that evolved the most.
Oh yeah, especially when you consider he was nothing more than a basic EMH.
Yeah,
and he had a simple job, and that was heal people, and yet he became a fully fledged person.
And people would have risked their lives to save him,
and they did.
And they did. I think not only was his evolution, but the evolution to connect with the crew.
Yeah.
He actually became a sentient life form.
Yeah.
And I like that, because that is the very core of what Starfleet's all about. To seek out new life forms. And basically we watch a life form become a life form in front of us.
Yeah, and you recall, I mean, we were talking about Queen Arachnia earlier, and we saw other photonic life forms in that episode, and they looked at him as one of their own.
Yep, and they saw us as the enemy, you know.
Yeah, they were, what are you?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the Doctor was probably the strongest character that I watched through Voyager's series.
And in a way, my heart broke for him a little bit, because it was clear he was in love with 7 of 9.
Oh yeah. There was no if, buts, or maybes with that. But
a lot of hard work for her, and in the end, he watched her fall into the arms of Chakotay.
But that became like any other living creature, where you have those ups and downs, and he had his fair share of ups and downs.
Although I still think the best episode that was done for him was, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was the one where B'Elanna Torres messed with his family. And he had to live through the loss of his daughter, and that was gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
It was an absolute gut punch. But it was, whoever wrote that episode, kudos to him.
But you got to admit, by that time, we felt absolute sorrow. As fans, we felt absolute sorrow for a hologram character.
Yeah.
So we'd become connected to this character, and this character had become connected to us. So we didn't see him as just a computer program. We saw him as a living being.
Exactly. And kudos to Robert Picardo for bringing him to life.
My favorite for comedy wise is Message in a Bottle. That's Lynn, my wife, Lynn, and mine favorite. That one we love. We could watch that forever. It's just great to watch. It's so, and I can't remember the stand-up comedian who played the other hologram. He was so funny. I mean,
it was hysterical.
EMH1
and EMH2.
Yeah, it was so funny to watch that.
It was hysterical.
Yeah. Okay.
They pulled it off in the end. Target. Romulans.
Yeah. Let's go to Neelix. Neelix is a weird. At the very beginning, on a lot of the forums, a lot of people were actually saying we don't like Neelix. Now, I think that was a bit harsh.
Yeah, well, it was kind of creepy that he was in love with a 2-year-old.
Yeah,
people, myself included, because well, you're a dad, aren't you? Oh, I
No.
don't. You got any kids? Well,
No.
I am a dad, and I've got a number of children, and so the idea of him being a dad to someone who's, I'll look at her and yeah, okay, she looks fairly grown, but she's still 2, and he's a hell of a lot older than she is. It just looked wrong, and seriously wrong. It looked,
Yeah,
so I think they really, that was just wrong on too many levels. And so I was kind of glad when they broke the pair of them up. Mind you, aside from that, I thought Neelix was a fairly well fleshed out character. The idea of having him as a scavenger, the idea that water was scarce in that part of the galaxy was an interesting notion. That he knew his way around fairly well, that he was a guide, that the horrible things that had happened to him and his family in the past and what have you, these were all, he was a fairly well fleshed out character.
Yeah. In fact, he was probably one of the
character too.
He was probably one of the most fleshed out characters of Voyager. I mean, we got to learn a lot about his background.
They did make one constant mistake with him, though.
What?
They forgot he had one lung.
Yeah, okay.
A person who has one lung doesn't do half the things that he did.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right with that. I think, but that's the standard writer's oversight.
Yeah.
You know?
Reset button. Ding.
Yeah. They could easily have got away with that by the doctor coming up with an artificial lung or something, but they never actually said it, which is probably what they did, but they never said it.
Yeah. Well, if he had, yeah. Yes,
If
it was written, it was done between episodes somewhere, and we forgot to mention it.
You could have grown a new lung for him or something. I mean, they had that ability to do it, but they just needed to have, even if it was like a couple of, that cloned lung we gave you, that would have solved all the problems.
That's true. Yeah, all you had to do was say that at some point, and it was taken care of, but they never mentioned it. And once again, forgotten.
Yeah.
So like I said, Voyager amnesia is what I call it, and it's just a bit frustrating, and it's dumb. Because you create all these great story plot points and story, and it gets forgotten. Voyager, she left as one ship. She got back to the Delta Quadrant as a very different ship. Along the way, for instance, I got to be better at remembering episode names. But you recall there was at one point Voyager was trying out, and it seemed to have actually had installed a weapon that blew the guts clean out of a target that it fired at. And as far as I knew, that weapon was installed on the ship, and they flew off with it still on board. And yet that was never brought up again.
No, I can't remember that episode.
Seven of Nine accused this weapons seller of violating her, but her memories were unreliable.
Hang on, I know.
He was accused, but of course her memories were unreliable. He hadn't actually done it, but the damage was already done, and in the end he went up dead. And the whole the thing was regrettable, but in the end, as I said, as far as I know, Voyager flew off with that weapon still installed. So once again, it's a case of
retrospect.
Yeah, so retrospect. So Voyager flies off with his new weapon installed, and what happened to it? Never mentioned again. What happened to that lovely new weapon that was installed in it?
Well, they took it back to the Alpha Quadrant.
Exactly. So, point being, and I've heard it mentioned many times, Voyager suffered a lot of damage along the way. And now, compare this with Enterprise Season 3. Enterprise went into the Expanse as a completely intact ship and barely got back. She was a hulk. She was a really messed up ship when she got back, and she needed a lot of work in dry dock. Whereas Voyager went clear across the galaxy and came back pretty much brand spanking new.
Probably better than spanking new, to be honest.
Exactly.
She had upgrades along the way.
Exactly. So it should have. It should have been different. Either damaged, no, not necessarily damaged, but they should have done something interesting with it. You know, they soup it up.
I personally think that the hull itself should have looked different when they got home.
Yeah.
It should have had alien technology attached to it, because Federation technology is very specific. It's technologically specific. So if they were hammering bits and pieces, the hull should have looked different.
Yeah. I mean, pick up some stuff along the way. I mean, we've seen it in other series where it's like, yeah, you're on your way home, you pick up some stuff. It's like, oh, look what we found. Even in Lower Decks, the Packlets have picked up a whole bunch of stuff from people, and they've gone from being the morons of the galaxy to being, oh, we are strong. Yeah, they learned it. Why can't Voyager?
Yeah.
So seriously, that if they had dropped the ball in one bit, it is that Voyager should have adapted a hell of a lot more. Because if there was one thing, they seem to be just focused tunnel vision on technologies just to get them home, but they should have been looking for a whole lot more than that. Well,
I can understand them constantly having. They needed something to focus on to get home, but they shouldn't have basically. They also should have been considering that at some point the trip home may not happen, and they're going to have to stay where they are. So they've got a ship. They've had technology given to them by other species that leveled the ship up on the same playing field as most of the others, and then they give it up.
Yeah.
Now that's not the greatest plan, because if they actually had to stay in the Delta Quadrant, they were undergunned. They were really undergunned to protect themselves. And you're right. There was shortcomings with some of the concepts, and they were a bit tunnel vision on that point. Now, whether they wanted to say, well, they wanted to get back as Starfleet, yeah, or it was just easy, a bit lax writing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because the other thing you have to consider, and this is a big one, it would have come to a budget. If they continued to evolve the ship, they would have had to have continued to make new models.
Fair point. And that is expensive.
It becomes massively expensive.
Mind you, along the way, I know Voyager started out with models, but it wasn't that long into the series that they switched to CGI.
I think they were still doing both on a lot of the scenes. I don't think they went 100% CGI to that end. I think they were using both techniques still for the whole series. Now I could be wrong.
Yeah, but I think the model ones were the standard flybys that we were used to seeing.
Yeah, and this is where the money would have been problematic, because once you start, and as you go along over 7 years, you would expect the ship to change shape and design maybe 3 times. Potentially, I would have said 3 to 4 times. There's 3 or 4 new models that they had to build. Now, that's even if they did it model, like old fashioned, it's this big, or they did it CGI, that's still going to cost a lot of money to constantly build. Because then all the footage that they did before, all the computer footage, has to be redone, and that's expensive.
Oh yeah, I know. There's been talk. Why haven't they gone back and done Voyager on Blu-ray? And that is simply because all of the effects that were done on SD, the standard definition video. You can't upgrade that. You'd have to use AI. Sure, the most of the live action stuff was done on film, but all of the visual effects were done on standard definition video. And well, most of them at least. And so you can't upgrade that. You'd have to redo all of the visual effects. Mind you, have you seen the Voyager intro in 4K that's available on YouTube?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's gorgeous. Absolutely. When we're finished here, go over to YouTube, punch in Voyager 4K, and watch the title sequence of Voyager in 4K. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, there you go, everybody. Sorry, I've said everybody. Hello, there you go. All those one people are watching. Here's what he said, and basically go over there and have a look. Okay, who's next? Who we got next? Let's do Paris, and then we can do 7. Let's do Paris. Paris was, I think, an interesting. He was the troublemaker of the ship.
Yeah, he was the guy that let down Wesley Crusher, but didn't, and then because we know that he was the same character, but didn't, but because they changed his name so they wouldn't actually have to pay the original the guy who actually created the character royalties, but so they changed his name, and yeah. But yeah, he was a great character. I liked the rogue that had to be redeemed, and the playboy that eventually was wooed by Lana Torres, the one who hasn't a care in the world, and then along the way found a cause. I like
Paris's character. I think they needed somebody like that in the Delta Quadrant with them, because he could, if need be, and Janeway did use him multiple times for this. If there was rules needed to be bent, he was the prime candidate, because Tuvok would never bend a rule. Chakotay would never bend rules.
Tuvok did bend a rule.
He did, but not like Paris. Paris kind of had a flair to bending rules, I think. Kim would never have bent rules. I think he would have broken completely if he'd broken a rule. But Tom was the go-to if you wanted a rule to be broken. It was the easiest character, I think.
Well, there was that point where he actually left the ship at the end of season 2.
Yeah, and that confused everybody for a very long time until they figured out he's undercover. Like, yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, but and that worked out well for them. But no, Tom was the likable rogue, and I love the fact that he was working on that car at his workshop, the car that wasn't real, but still all the same. It was nice that he was working on it.
He had to put all the buttons and controls into the Delta Flyer.
Mind you, of all the stupidity that I've ever seen in Voyager, I do most of my own car maintenance because I've learned not to trust mechanics. But when they find what was it, a 48 Ford truck, floating out in space, they take it into the shuttle bay and they turn on the radio. Yeah, right. And then they hit the start button and it starts. Pull the other one, it's got bells on it.
Look, the petrol would have frozen solid. It would have
vaporized ages ago. The oil would have been long gone. The engine was probably still frozen. The battery would have died ages ago. I can list the things. The radio would have had glass valves in it that would have shattered years ago. Seriously, there's no way in hell that thing would have run.
Well, my family, we used to have cars in our driveway all the time when I was growing up, and I remember a car sitting in the driveway for 3 years, hadn't been turned over once, right? So it had been through Australian summer and Australian winter, which I know most people go, Australia don't have winter, but we do get summers. And I remember trying to turn that car over when we had to move it. And my dad was a 50-year mechanic, and even he couldn't get it to go. It was so dead, and it had only been sitting there for 3 years out in the elements. It was dead as a doornail. Battery was gone.
So it's been floating in space for 300 years. Not a chance.
No. And the tires would have exploded.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have exploded. And what the other thing, if you actually looked at the car,
Yeah.
the body, there wasn't a meteorite impact on it anywhere. How does the windshield not get hit once?
Yeah.
It's something traveling. I just
go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, just throw the laws of logic and reason straight out.
We're gonna throw thermodynamics out the airlock.
Yeah.
But all right. Last character, 7 of 9.
Yes, as my wife likes to say, she's Italian. She helped translate one of my stories into Italian. That was a lot of fun. But yes.
Okay, you can have the first go on 7. How do you feel about 7, and how do you think, did she help the series or did she bring it down?
Oh no, she was a great boost to the series. The ratings weren't doing wonderfully. They needed to change things up a little bit. Kess was seriously an underused character, and so as we've discussed, Harry Kim was. Both of their heads were on the chopping blocks.
Yes.
And one of them had to go. Sadly, Kess went. She went in spectacular fashion, but she went, and yeah. And so, and of course, enter Jerry Ryan, aka Seta Denova, 7 of 9. And didn't she arrive with a splash? I really felt sorry for Jerry, though, because the bloke who designed her outfits just needed to be slapped. But
yeah, I don't really.
She was so uncomfortable.
There's a great interview with her saying that there were times when she almost passed out doing scenes in hot days. She almost passed out. They actually had to extend filming for her because she had to start a lot of times.
And that also fostered the animosity between Kate and Jerry as well, because to begin with, she looks like nothing more than eye candy. And no wonder Kate thought she was being brought aboard for nothing more than sex appeal. Of course, Jerry is a brilliant actress, and 7 of 9 was given some interesting roles, but a lot of the other characters suffered because it became in Voyager, sadly, in a lot of ways, became the 7 of 9 show.
I think
there was too much focus on her all too often.
I think the problem, and I've never fully understood it, why they had to. Don't take me the wrong. I'm not going to go into this in detail. Yeah. I know why they did it, but I don't know why they created a uniform like that for her. It didn't make a lot of sense, and I know they did that with T'Pol too. And the uniforms just didn't make a lot of sense.
No,
just physically,
it was all about sex appeal.
It was, and I could have gone with, like what we wear today. If you've got burns or you've got I've got swollen legs, so we need to have compression socks on and that. I could understand that having a compression bodysuit on underneath the uniform. I could accept that. That would make sense to me.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily I don't think we needed. And I know this is going to be contentious. I get that from the get-go, but I don't think we needed to see that kind of compression bodysuit where we could have had her in a uniform, whether it was a Starfleet uniform or another kind of uniform. I think that took away from her acting ability too. I think
all too often it was people. A lot of the guys in particular, it's like, guys, her face is up here.
Yeah, I know.
It's you had to be reminded, she had a face.
She is a good actress. She's a really good
great actress.
But I don't think a lot of people could get past the fact of the bodysuit.
Yeah, and that catsuit did her no favors.
No.
None whatsoever. And as I said, it also created animosity with some of the other cast members.
I think we'd gone past those kind of suits, to be truthfully honest. I don't think there was a necessity. If the writers were doing their job and they picked the right actor, then they should have been able to carry the series. And I think they could have done some amazing stories with her becoming more human.
And if you want to integrate her into the crew, then she should have been wearing at least something akin to a uniform.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it had to be a complete Starfleet. I never would have said that. But I always kind of think that the suit took away from Star Trek a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to have.
Same went for T'Pol in Enterprise. She should have been wearing a uniform.
Well, if you look at everyone else, all the other Vulcans' uniforms, here's T'Pol, and she's the only one walking around looking like that. There's no other body in the same uniform.
Exactly, and it was all about sex. It's just sex sells, as we know.
And I just never got that concept.
Stupid because the writers have forgotten what they're writing for.
Well,
Star Trek, and we're in a future where men and women are supposed to be treated equally.
Yeah, I know.
Then this beyond these notions of sex, but we live in our age where, of course, sex sells.
Yeah, I know, and I think the writers were being. I think I did read a lot of articles years after Voyager went off television that the writers were getting pressured from the network to write a certain way. They were having a lot of the freedoms taken away. And I think that made it hard. I think I might be coming down on the writers a little bit too hard, maybe because they may not have had a choice. They might have been cornered into writing.
At all. The networks are often interfering.
Yeah, and look, that was one thing that Roddenberry was able to argue the point. He was able to argue against the networks altering too much. He even lost out on a lot of things. But when Roddenberry passed away, there was no one really there to talk for Star Trek.
Yeah.
And they weren't listening greatly to the fans yet. I mean, that kind of came later. But yeah, look, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too hard. Maybe the uniforms fitted, but I just think the uniform was. It just didn't make any sense. To me, it didn't make any sense. That was my understanding.
No, it never did.
It never fitted into anything. You know.
Yeah, well, just a look, but it's just that's just one thing. I mean, the 7 of 9 as a character, she had an enormous character development. She went through some really tough times, especially when she bumped into, what was it, 2 of 9, 3 of 9, and 4 of 9.
Yeah.
And had to face a terrible decision she'd made in the past. To actually face her own demons. She had some great storylines, but if they made, as I said, if they made one great mistake was that in a very real way, Voyager became the 7 of 9 series. It was far too much focus on her character to the detriment of so many others, especially as we pointed out, Chakotay became very much a secondary character.
He really lost out big time when 7 came on. He lost out. His character development, I think, ended the moment 7 came on board.
Yeah, and I think I remember reading somewhere that I think Rob Beltran felt it was a bit of a slap in the face to him. The reason why they chose him to be 7 of 9's, and mind you, I may be wrong about this, so please don't take this with a grain of salt, but I think the reason they chose him to be her love interest in the final days of Voyager was because he'd been speaking out about the shift in focus away from Chakotay's character to her. So, for the lack of storylines that he'd been getting, that he'd been given nothing really interesting to do. And
I had read
been given an awesome amount of stuff to do.
I had read that somewhere, not the same kind of version, but I had read something very similar years ago, where he gave an interview after I think it was San Diego, one of the Comic Cons in the US. He gave a private interview, and that he did say that it was, he was constantly saying something to the producer and the director that this situation was getting a bit awkward.
Yeah. And if that is the case, I don't blame him, and I feel very sorry for him.
Yeah,
You said he was totally underutilized.
Oh, he was a very good actor, and I think they had a lot of latitude with his character. A huge amount to talk about with his character and everything like that. Now, I think this is where also having one ship problem, where one ship problem comes is if they'd had two ships, like if they kept the Marquis Raider.
No, they always had two ships. They just never used the other one.
Yeah,
No, I mean they always had two ships. They just never used the other one.
What other one was there?
The Aero Shuttle.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Voyager had its Aero Shuttle. It technically had two ships.
Yeah, all right. All right. No, I stand corrected. But I'm talking like if they'd kept the Marquis Raider. I think that could have made a very interesting.
Yeah, that's a fair point. If they travelled in convoy, that would have been interesting.
I think having this one ship concept, like in today's ones, I don't think you do it so much. You would have multiple ships.
Yeah, mind you, that's getting a little Battlestar Galactica, don't you think?
It could be perceived as that, but I think if again, this all comes down to how good the writers can write the story plots.
Yes, we're looking for that fabled star called Earth.
Yeah, look, I would consider now. I'm not even an amateur writer. I'm a novice writer. I write purely for my own pleasure. I personally would see two ships as a writer's fantasy because you could do so many story arcs between them. But, and I will stand corrected on this, you could also in a TV show very quickly and accidentally start creating Star Trek Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
I can stand corrected on that without a problem. You could easily do it.
Yeah.
And then if it did, it would become laughable.
Yeah.
And I can see why they wouldn't want to do it. But if you got a series of really good writers, and look, if you got rid of the good writers halfway through season 4, you could always blow the ship up and just go to a one ship convoy. But I just think they should have kept the Marquis Raider for a bit longer and seen if they could have done something with it.
Yeah,
but that's me.
Maybe blow it up later in the season.
Yeah, or something like that. But that's me. I think we've caned Voyager enough. This has gone a little bit longer than we'd anticipated. Look, just so everybody understands, this was not scripted.
Totally not.
No, we made this up as we were going along. And this is what the club does. We like to do these kind of things. All right.
Well,
and we thought we would.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah, and we thought we'd do something like this that we could put up and let everybody see what we actually do. This could either go two ways, where everybody thinks we're really, really good, or my God, these guys are real. I'm trying to find a diplomatic word. Really weird. I'm probably going on the latter more than the former, but hey, I've been proven wrong many times. I think that's it. I think we now have to transport back into real life, which is really depressing, but still it happens. And I've got to go and get tea ready. Anyway, I've got to cook.
Yes, and I have to go pick up my wife from the doctor's.
Yeah, I've got to go and do a Neelix episode and try and cook jalapenos or something like that. Jalapenos.
Oh, jalapenos.
I've got to go and cook jalapenos.
Hopefully not just jalapenos. Birds are going in, birds are going out.
Yes. Thanks, Sean, for doing this.
Sure.
This might be the one and only version of the series. I'm hoping it won't be. Look, in all honesty, we should get better in about 3 years. And we might actually bring more people on, which would basically, we'd pick on them more than we'd be picking on the TV series. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how this goes. I will see how this first one goes, to be honest, because it might be a flop. It's probably going to be a flop. I have complete confidence.
I've had a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you for coming, Sean. And for any one person who watches this, thank you extremely much for watching it. Leave a comment for watching it. I will put links to Starfleet, to the Southern Cross, and to Sean's website as soon as I get it. Go over and have a look. It's got some really good stuff on it to have a read. All right. So
great stories and also great links to great YouTube videos that can be watched.
He's actually a very gifted writer. I'm just going to give him a plug. He is a very gifted writer. He has written some stuff for us. And here's a plug now. If you wanted to join, I will. I'll leave the club's email in the thing, and you can contact me, and we can talk about joining. I may as well use it as a PR plug. All right. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Hang on, we'll do this. It's the only hand I can do it on. I can't do it on my other hand. And thank you for watching this. And we should have another one up in some point in time.